Well, everyone, welcome to our second video. This second video is going to review congruence. Congruence is a vital part of transformations, specifically rigid transformations. So in the last video, we discussed the three different types of rigid transformations. We discussed translations, rotations, and reflections. Today, or right now, we're going to talk about how those rigid transformations relate to congruence. So just as a quick recap, our learning target today is I can describe the different types of rigid transformations and congruence. So that's our goal, is we're going to be focusing right now on congruence. So what does it mean if a shape is congruent? One figure is congruent to the other if it can be moved with a translation, rotation, and reflection to fit exactly over the other. So I'm going to say that again, and I'm going to say it in a little bit different language. One figure is congruent to another, or two figures are congruent, if it can be moved with a rigid transformation. Remember, a rigid transformation is a translation, rotation, or reflection. So if I can do a rigid transformation and one shape can fit exactly over the other, then they're congruent. What that also means in simpler terms is just congruent shapes are the exact same. They might be in different locations or turned or mirrored, but it's still the same shape, the same size, the same measurements. Everything will be the same. So for example, we've got shape A and shape B. Both are triangles. A and B, if I started with shape A, I could translate that down and to the right, and it would cover exactly over shape B. Because it would cover exactly over shape B, shape A and shape B are both congruent. The way I would get to them, or I could find out that they're congruent, is through translations, which is a rigid transformation. Let's look at shape B and shape C now. Shape B and shape C are also congruent because if I were to go from shape B, I could rotate it clockwise and it would get exactly over shape C. Because I could do a rigid transformation of a rotation and they would be exactly over each other, they're congruent. Shape C and shape D, those two shapes are also congruent. They're congruent because I could do a rigid transformation of a reflection. If I reflected shape C, it would get exactly where shape D is, and they would be the exact same size, shape, and measurement. So, what does it mean if a shape is congruent? It means that there is a rigid transformation or multiple rigid transformations that would put one shape exactly over the other, meaning the two shapes would be the same size, shape, and measurements. So this is not necessarily a new thing we've talked about. We've talked about it before, but if you need extra help with congruence, you can get that help at Unit 1 going to the website im.openupresources.org. That's the site that has all of the material that we've used this year. So all of the practice problems, all of those things that we've done this year in our notebooks can be found at that site. All you've got to do is select that you're an 8th grade student, and it'll take you to the online version of your workbook. So the workbook that you used in our classroom is there online as well. You can also Google congruence and see if you see any videos either on Khan Academy or just online or just definitions that maybe help you out understand what congruence is a little bit better. The last thing that you can do to get extra support is try to find examples of congruence in the real world. See if you can find shapes that are congruent in your house. There's lots that I'm sure you can find if you start looking. So, in review, congruence is when two shapes are the same shape, measurement, angles, side lengths, everything's the same. The only thing that may or may not be different is the location. We know a shape is congruent if there is a rigid transformation or transformations that can take one shape to the other. What that means is if I do a rigid transformation, the first shape will be exactly over the second shape, so they'll be exactly on top. At this point, after you finish this video, you should start on the congruence practice, which is in Google Classroom. So after watching this video, there's a couple practice problems where you'll get to practice seeing which shapes are congruent or not. So get started on that, and then we'll see you for this next video.